Until recently, little was known about the viability of pasture cropping in Western Australia due to the lack of local research and on-farm experience. At this focus site, southwest of Moora, staff from CSIRO and the Department of Agriculture and Food Western Australia are evaluating the viability of pasture cropping across subtropical perennial grasses in WA. The site was established in 2008 to collect detailed measurements on the soil water dynamics and crop performance of different pasture cropping systems.
At this site, we've grown barley in rotation with lupins for the last 4 years. Here's Wonga lupins sown into Gat and Panic. We're interested in exploring not only the logistics of seeding a crop into a perennial, but also how it performs in terms of yield.
Even though the period of active growth for the annual crop and perennial pasture are at different times of the year, there could be some overlap and competition around the break of season and in spring.
The key thing we're doing at this site is measuring the soil water uptake by the two different components. So I've got pasture and we've got the crop, and we want to know where in the soil they're getting their water from and what time of year they're doing it so that we know how they're mixing it up together. Well, one of the ways we're measuring soil water is with these FDR probes. They're about 30 centimetres long and just go into the soil, and we can program them to measure soil water every 15 minutes, and we put them in at different depths into the soil. We can really look at day by day and hour by hour where in the soil the different components are getting water from.
Soil moisture readings over time have shown that the amount of stored moisture under the annual crop and pasture cropping treatment differ. Interestingly, the amount of stored moisture in the soil profile during the winter growing season is similar. By contrast, the amount of soil moisture in summer is about 100 millimetres less under pasture cropping compared to the annual crop treatment down to a depth of 3 metres. Greater depletion of soil moisture under pasture cropping systems occurs in summer during the period of active perennial growth. This lifts ground cover, provides green feed and creates a larger bucket to reduce recharge after heavy rainfall events. But what impact does this have on grain yield?
The key result we've got so far is that over 2 years of growing crops and pastures together, the crop yield has been much the same whether we've had the pasture growing or not. So we're not seeing anywhere near the yield penalty that we thought we would.
For the past 4 years, the performance of annual crops sown over different perennial pastures has been compared with an annual-based system. All crops were sown after a knockdown, sprayed with a broadleaf selective herbicide in crop and top-dressed with nitrogen at 2 different rates. In 2009, barley sown in line with district practice yielded 2.8 tonnes per hectare. Grain yields were similar for crops sown over perennial grasses. In subsequent years, pasture cropping did not result in a yield penalty relative to the control. The only significant yield penalty observed over 3 seasons was in 2009 in treatments where 80 units of nitrogen was applied to the barley crop. In 2012, the lupin crop was reasonable, but there were some surprises.
One of the things that we did notice was that the perennial grasses differed in their tolerance to herbicides. Here you will notice that Panic has come back after verdict. Contrast that with Rhodes grass, which was impacted quite severely by the herbicide. Many of the plants were actually killed, but we're hoping that they'll come back through runners.
The value of this trial is in helping us parameterise a computer model that will allow us to look at how this farming system will operate on different soils, in different regions, in different seasons. Pasture cropping could be integrated into farming systems from 2 perspectives, either as a grazing system in providing feed for stock out of season, or it could be used as a cropping system where grain could be harvested from the pasture cropped paddock in a favourable year. To explore how widely this technology could be adopted, we'll be using the trial to parameterise simulation models and then use those simulation models to help us predict where the pastures can grow, where the crops can grow, and determine what seasons that we can get both crops and pastures growing together.
Results from the Moora Focus site have confirmed that pasture cropping can be viable in WA. but success is dependent on winter dormancy or suppression in the perennial pasture, effective weed control, and adequate fertility and moisture. The experiences of innovative growers are highlighted in the third video of this series on pasture cropping to show how growers are bringing all the pieces together.